Hello guys, today I talk about law number 19. Know who you are dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. First of all, judgment. There are many different kinds of people in the world, and you can never assume that everyone will react to your strategies in the same way. Deceive or outmaneuver some people, and they will spend the rest of their lives seeking revenge. They are they are wolves in lamb's clothing. Choose your victims and opponents carefully. Then never offend or deceive the wrong person. Opponents, suckers, and victims. Preliminary typologies. In your rise to power, you will come across many breeds of opponent, sucker, and victim. The highest form of the art of power is the ability to distinguish the wolves from the lambs, the foxes from the hares, he hawks from the vulture. If you make this distinction well, you will succeed without needing to fear anyone too much. But if you deal blindly with whomever cross your path, you will have a lot of constant sorrow. If you even live that long, being able to recognize type of people and to act accordingly is critical. The following are the 5 most dangerous and difficult types of mark in the jungle, as identified by artists on and otherwise of the past. The arrogant and proud man, although he may initially disguise it, this man's touchy pride makes him very dangerous. Any perceived slight will lead to a wagon of overwhelming violence. You many say to yourself, but I only said such and such at party where everyone was drunk. It does not matter. There is no sanity behind his overreaction. So do not waste time trying to figure him out. If at any point in your dealings with a person you sense an oversensitive and overactive pride, flee. Whatever you are hoping for from his isn't worth it. The hopelessly insecure man. This man is related to the proud and arrogant type, but is less violent and harder to spot. His ego is fragile, his sense of self insecure, and if he feels himself deceived or attacked, the hurt will simmer. He will attack you in bites that will take forever to get big enough for you to notice. If you find you have deceived or harmed such a man, disappear from a long time. Do not stay around him or he will nibble you to death. Mr. Suspicion. Another variant on the breeds above. This is a future Joy Stalin. He sees what he wants to see, usually the worst in other people, and imagines that everyone is after him. Mr. Suspicion is in fact the least dangerous of the 3. Genuinely imbalanced, he is easy to deceive, just as Stalin himself was constantly deceived. Play on his suspicious nature to get him to turn against other people. But if you do become the target of his suspicions, watch out. A, a serpent, a serpent with a long memory, if hurt or deceived, this man will show on anger on the surface. He will calculate and wait. Then, when he is in a position to turn the tables, he will exact a revenge marked by a cold-blooded shrewdness. Recognize this man by his calculation and cunning in the different areas of his life. He is usually cold and unaffectionate, be doubly careful of his neck, and if you have somehow injured him, either crush him completely or get him out of your sight. The plan unassuming and often an intelligent man. Oh, your ears prick up when you find such a tempting victim, but this man is a lot harder to deceive than you imagine. Falling for a ruse often takes intelligence and imagination, a sense of the possible rewards. The blunt man will not take the bait because he does not recognize it. He is that unaware. The danger will the danger with this man is not that he will harm you or seek revenge, but merely that is that he will waste your time, energy, resources, and even your sensitivity in trying to deceive him. Have a test ready for a mark, a joke, a story. If his reaction is literal, this is the type you are dealing with. Continue at your own risk. Transgression of the law. Transgression 1. In the early part of the 13th century, Muhammad, the Shah of Khwarizm, managed after many wars to forge a huge empire extending west to present-day Turkey and south of Afghanistan. The empire's center was the great Asian capital of Samarkand. The Shah had a powerful, well-trained army and could mobilize 200,000 warriors within days. In 1219, Muhammad received an embassy from a new tribal leader to the east, Genghis Khan. The embassy included all sorts of gifts to the great Muhammad, representing the finest goods from Khan's small but growing Mongol empire. Genghis Khan wanted to repawn the Silk Route to Europe and offered to share it with Muhammad while promising peace between the two empires. Muhammad did not know this upstart from the east, who it seemed to him was extremely arrogant to try to talk as an equal to one so clearly his superior. His ignorant Khan's offer. Khan tried again. This time he sent a caravan of 100 camels filled with the rarest articles he had plundered from China. Before the caravan reached Muhammad, however, Inalchik, the governor of a region bordering on Samarkand, seized it for himself and executed its leaders. Genghis Khan was sure that this was a mistake, that Inalchik had acted without Muhammad's approval. He sent yet another mission to Muhammad, reiterating his offer and asking that the governor be punished. This time Muhammad himself had one of the ambassadors beheaded and sent the other two back with shaved heads, a horrifying insult in the Mongol code of honor. Khan sent a message to the Shah: "You have chosen war. That will happen, and what it is to be, we know not. Only God knows." Mobilizing his force in 1220, he attacked Inalchik's province, where he seized the capital, captured the governor, and ordered him executed by having molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. Over the next year, Khan led a series of guerrilla-like campaigns against the Shah's much larger army. His method was totally novel for the time. His soldiers could move very fast on horseback and had mastered the art of firing with bow and arrow while mounted. The speed and flexibility of his force allowed him to deceive Muhammad as to his intentions and the direction of his movements. Eventually, he managed first to surround Samarkand, then to seize it. Muhammad fled, and a year later died. His vast empire broken and destroyed. Genghis Khan was sole master of Samarkand, the Silk Route, and most of northern Asia. Interpretation: never assume that the person you are dealing with is weaker or less important than you are. Some men are so the take offense, which may make you misjudge the thickness of their skin and fail to worry about insulting them. But should you offend their honor and their pride, they will overwhelm you with a violence that seems sudden and extreme, given their slowness to anger. If you want to turn people down, it is best to do so politely and respectfully. Even if you feel their request is impudent or their offer ridiculous, never reject them with an insult until you know them better. You may be dealing with a Genghis Khan. Translation 2. In the late 1910s, some of the best children in America formed a con artist ring based in Denver, Colorado. In the winter months, they would spread across the southern states, playing their trade. In 1920, Joy Fury, a leader of the ring, was working his way through Texas, make hundreds of thousands of dollars with classic con games. In Fort Worth, he met a sucker named J. Frank Norfleet, a cattleman who owned a large ranch. Norfleet fell for the con. Convinced of the risk to come, he emptied his bank account of $45,000 and handed it over to Fury and his confederates. A few days later, they gave him his millions, which turned out to be a few good dollars wrapped around a packet of newspaper clippings. Fury and his men had worked such cons 100 times before, and the sucker was usually too embarrassed by his gullibility that he quietly learned his lesson and accepted the loss. But Norfleet was not like other suckers. He went to the police, who told him there was little they could do. I'll go after those people myself. Norfleet told the detectives, I'll get them too if it takes the rest of my life. His wife took over the ranch as Norfleet secured the country, looking for others who had been placed in the same game. One such sucker came forward, and the two men identified one of the con artists in San Francisco and managed to get him locked up. The man committed suicide rather than face a long term in a prison. Norfleet kept going. He tracked down another of the con artists in Montana, robbed him like a calf, and dragged him through the muddy streets to the town jail. He travelled not only across the country but to England, Canada and Mexico in search of Joy Fury, and also Fury's right-hand man, W.B. Spencer. find Spencer in Montreal. Norfleet chased him through the streets. Spencer escaped, but the ranger stayed on his trail and caught up with him in Salt Lake City, preferring the mercy of the law to Norfleet's wrath. Spencer turned himself in. Norfleet found fury in Jack's novel, Florida, and personally held him off to face justice in Texas, but he wouldn't stop there. He continued on the downward determined to break up the entire ring, spending not only larger sums of money but another year of his life in the pursuit. He managed to pull all of the con ring's leaders behind bars. Even some he didn't catch had grown so terrified of him that they too turned themselves in. After 5 years of hunting, Norfleet had single-handedly destroyed the country's largest confederation of con artists. The effort bankrupted him and ruined his marriage, but he died a satisfied man. Interpretation: most men accept the humiliation of being conned with a sense of resignation. They learn their lesson, recognize that there is no such thing as a free lunch, and that they have usually been brought down by their own greed for easy money. Some, however, refuse to take their medicine. Instead of reflecting on their own gullibility and avarice, they see themselves as totally innocent victims. Men like these may seem to be cursors for justice and honesty, but they are actually immediately insecure. Being fooled, being conned has activated their self-doubt, and they are desperate to repair the damage. Where the mortgage on Norfleet's ranch, the collapse of his marriage, and the years of borrowing money and living in cheap hotels worth his revenge over his embarrassment at being fleeced to the Norfleets of the world. Overcoming their embarrassment is worth any price. All people have insecurities, and often the best way to deceive a sucker is to play upon his insecurities. But in the realm of power, everything is a question of degree, and the person who is decidedly more insecure than the average mortal present great danger. Be warned: if you practiced deception or trickery of any sort, study your mark well. Some people's insecurity and ego fragility cannot tolerate the slightest offense. To see if you are dealing with such a type, test them first. Make a mild joke at their expense. A confident person will laugh, an overly insecure one will react as if personally insult. If you suspect you are dealing with this type, find another victim. Transgression 3. In the 5th century BC, Genghis, the prince of Qin, had been forced into exile. He lived modestly, even sometimes in poverty, waiting for the time when he could return home and resume his princely life. When he was passing through the steppe of Chang, where the ruler, not knowing who he was, treated him rudely, the ruler ministers Shu Chen saw this and said, This man is a worthy prince, May your highness treat him with great courtesy and thereby place him under an obligation. But the ruler, able to see only the princess lowly station, ignored this advice and insulted the prince again. Shu Chen again warned his master, saying, "If your highness cannot treat Chung Ear with courtesy, you should put him to death to avoid calamity in the future." The ruler only scoffed. Years later, the prince was finally able to return home. His circumstances greatly changed. He did not forget who had been kind to him and who had been insolent during his years of poverty. Least of all did he forget his treatment at the hands of the ruler of Cheng. At his first opportunity, he assembled a vast army and marched on Cheng, taking 8 cities, destroying the kingdom and sending the ruler into an exile of his own. Interpretation: you can never be sure who you are dealing with. A man who is of little importance and means today can be a person of power tomorrow. We forget a lot in our lives, but we rarely forget an insult. How was the ruler of Cheng to know that Prince Chung Er was an ambitious, collecting cunning type, a Sreptan with a long memory? There was really no way for him to know, you may say, but since there was no way, it would have been better not to tempt the fates by finding out. There is nothing to be gained by insulting a person unnecessarily. Swallow the impulse too often. Even if the other person seems weak, the satisfaction is measured compared to the danger that someday he or she will be in a position to hurt you. Translation 4. The year of 1920 had been a particularly bad one for American art dealers. Big buyers, the robber baron generation of the previous century, were getting to an age where they were dying off like flies, and no one millionaires had embarrassed to take their place. Things were so bad that a number of the major dealers decided to pool their resources and unheard of event. Since at dealers usually get along like cats and dogs, Joseph Duven, art dealer to the richest Tynox of America, was suffering more than the others that year. So he decided to go along with this alliance. The group now consists of the 5 biggest dealers in the country. Looking around for a new client, they decided that their last best hope was Henry Ford. When the wealthiest man in America, Ford had yet to venture into the art market, and he was such a big target that it made sense for them to work together. The dealers decided to assemble a list, the 100 greatest paintings in the world, and to offer the lot of them to Ford. With the purchase, he could make himself the world's greatest collector. The consortium worked for weeks to produce a magnificent object, a 3-volume set of books containing beautiful reproductions of the paintings, as well as scholarly texts accompanying each picture. Next, they made a personal visit to Ford at his home in Dearborn, Michigan. There, they were surprised by the simplicity of his house. Mr. Ford was obviously an extremely unaffected man. Ford received them in his study. Looking through the book, he expressed astonishment and delight. The excited dealers began imagining the millions of dollars that would shortly flow into their offers. Finally, however, Ford looked up from the book and said, "Gentlemen, beautiful books like these, with beautiful colored pictures like these, must cost an awful lot." "But Mr. Ford," exclaimed Duane, we don't expect you to buy these books. We got them up especially for you to show your pictures. These books are a present to you." Ford seemed puzzled. "Gentlemen," he said, "it is extremely nice of you, but I really don't see how I can accept a beautiful, expensive present like this from strangers." Duane explained to Ford that the reproduction in these books short paintings they had hoped to sell to him. Ford finally understood. "But gentlemen," he exclaimed, "what would I want with the original pictures when the ones right there in these books are so beautiful?" Interpretation. Joseph Duane prided himself on studying his victims and clients in advance, figuring out their weakness and the peculiarities of their taste before he ever met them. He was driven by desperation to drop this tactic just once. In his assault on Henry Ford, it took him months to recover from his judgment, both mentally and monetarily. Ford was the unassuming plain man type who just isn't worth the bother. He was the incarnation of those little-minded folk who do not possess enough imagination to be deceived. From then on, Duane saved his energies for the Mellons and Morgans of the world, men crafty enough for him to entrap in his snares. Keys to power. The ability to measure people and to know who you are dealing with is the most important skill of all in gathering and conserving power. Without it, you are blind. Not only will you offend the wrong people, you will choose the wrong types to work on, and will think you are flattering people when you are actually insulting them. Before embarking on any move, take the measure of your mark or potential opponent. Otherwise, you will waste time and make mistakes. Study people's weaknesses, the chinks in their armor, their areas of both pride and insecurity. Know their ins and outs before you even decide whether or not to deal with them. Two final words of caution. First, in judging and measuring your opponent, never rely on your instincts. You will make the greatest mistakes of all if you rely on such inexact indicators. Nothing can substitute for gathering concrete knowledge. Study and spy on your opponent for however long it takes. These will pay off in the long run. Second, never trust appearance. Anyone with a parent's heart can use a show of kindness to cloak it. A person who is blustery on the outside is often really a crowd. Learn to see through appearance and their contradiction. Never trust the version that people give themselves. It is utterly unreliable. Image. The hunter, he does not lay the same trap of a wolf as for a fox. He does not set bait where no one will take it. He knows his prey thoroughly, its habits and hideaways, and hunts accordingly. Authority. Be convinced that there are no persons so insignificant and inconsiderable, but may sometime or other have it in their power to be of use to you, which they certainly without will not. If you have once shown them contempt, wrongs are often forgiven, but contempt never is. Our pride remembers forever. Reversal. What possible good can come from ignorance about other people? Learn to tell the lions from the lambs or pay the price. Obey this law to its fullest extent. It has no reversal. Do not bother looking for one. So guys, this is law number 19. Know who you are dealing with. Do not offend the wrong person. So guys, the next law number is 20. Do not commit to anyone. First of all, judgment. It is the fool who always rushes to take sides. Do not commit to any side or cause but yourself. By maintaining your independence, you become the master of others, playing people against one another, making them pressure you. Part 1. Do not commit to anyone but be courted by all. If you allow people to feel they possess you to any degree, you lose all power over them. By not committing your affections, they will only try harder to win you over. Stay aloof and you gain the power that comes from their attention and frustrated desire. Play the virgin queen. Give them hope but never satisfaction. Observance of the law. When Queen Elizabeth I ascended the throne of England in 1558, there was much to do about her finding a husband. The issue was debated in Parliament and was a main topic of conversation among Englishmen of all classes. They often disagreed as to whom she should marry, but everyone thought she should marry as soon as possible, for a queen must have a king and must bear heirs for the kingdom. The debates raged on for years. Meanwhile, the most handsome and eligible bachelors in the realm, Sir Robert Dudley, the Earl of Essex, Sir Walter Raleigh, fight for Elizabeth's hand. She did not discourage them, but she seemed to be in no hurry, and her hints as to which man might be her favorite often contradicted each other. In 1566, Parliament sent a delegation of Elizabeth, urging her to marry before she was too old to bear children. She did not argue, nor did they discourage the delegation, but she remained a virgin nonetheless. The delicate game that Elizabeth played with her suitors slowly made her the subject of innumerable sexual fantasies and the object of cultish worship. The Scottish physician Simon Forman used his diary to describe his dreams of deflowering her. Painters represented her a Diana and other other goodies. The poet Edmund Spencer and others wrote elegies to the Virgin Queen. She was referred to as the world's empress, that virtuous Virago who rules the world and set the stars in motion. In conversation with her, many male suitors would employ bold sexual innuendo, a dare that Elizabeth did not discourage. She did all she could to steer their interest and simultaneously keep them at bay. Throughout Europe, kings and princes knew that a marriage with Elizabeth would seal an alliance between England and any nation. The King of Spain wooed her, as did the Prince of Sweden and the Archduke of Austria. She politely refused all them. The great diplomatic issue of Elizabeth's death was posed by the revolt of the Flemish and Dutch lordnesses, which were then possessions of Spain. Should England break its alliance with Spain and choose France as its main ally on the continent, thereby encouraging Flemish and Dutch independence? By 1570, it had come to seem that an alliance with France would be England's wasted course. France had two eligible men of noble blood. The Duke was Anjou and Alençon, brothers of the French king. Would either of them marry Elizabeth? Both had advantage, and Elizabeth kept the hopes of both alive. The issue simmered for years. The Duke of Anjou made several visits to England, kissed Elizabeth in public, even called her by pet names. She appeared to requite his affection. Meanwhile, as she flirted with the two brothers, a treaty was signed that sealed peace between France and England. By 1582, Elizabeth felt the outbreak of courtship. In the case of the Duke of Anjou in particular, she did so with great relief. For the sake of diplomacy, she had allowed herself to be courted by a man whose presence she could not stand and whom she found physically repulsive. Once peace between France and England was secured, the Ancoats Duque as politely as she called. By this time Elizabeth was too old to bear children. She was accordingly able to live the rest of her life as she desired, and she did the Virgin Queen. She left no direct heir, but ruled through a period of incomparable peace and cultural fertility. So guys, second part will be continued tomorrow. Thank you.